would like to welcome today Terri Sorg, who is a retired mental health nurse and who is started in her retirement to write these series of books called Heart Fairy. And her most recent book is called Heart Fairy and Anxiety, where she kind of addresses some anxiety issues. So, Terri, welcome to our show.
Hello, everyone.
And first of all, I guess we'd like you to tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from, where you grew up, and got you interested in being a mental health professional, and then what inspired you to start writing these books.
All right. I started out in rural Sauk City, which is outside of Madison, Wisconsin. Um, all my cousins grew up on farms. Not that I'm a farm kid, but I'm a rural kid. Um, Raised my kids then in Wanakee, which is a suburb of Madison. And then now I'm married and living up in Linden Station, which is just outside of Wisconsin Dells.
Ah, cool.
So some familiar places for Chicagoans.
Yeah, yeah. And an
All right.
attraction for the grandkids, if I, right?
Yes.
Cool, cool. So, where did you go to school? What interested you in getting into the healthcare field or the mental health field?
Well, I kind of fell into that. So I went to UW Madison, got my bachelor's in nursing, and during the for a few years between your sophomore and junior year, you had to choose hospital nursing or non-hospital nursing, which was community nursing.
Mhm.
Well, I didn't want that set routine with instruments. I wanted to be with people. So I chose community nursing. And I didn't exactly know what that was. I started out inpatient at an institution and then eventually found my way into mental health kind of by default, transferring to better my position and
Hmm.
found that I loved it. And so I went from inpatient to outpatient and worked with chronic and severely mentally ill people. So people with schizophrenia or severe mental health conditions that were ordered by the court to stay on their medications. So of
Um,
course that meant they would go off of them on occasion. So as a case manager, our job was to make sure they could stay in the community the best that they could. So I really enjoyed that, getting to know the people. I've done a little visiting nurse stuff. I asked to get the more psych people, the ones who weren't compliant,
mhm.
and I figured out what was going on there, and so that's been my career mostly as a nurse.
But it was mostly dealing with an adult population, right? The
Mostly, I did deal with teenagers, so never small children.
mhm.
So I've always enjoyed growth and development, though. With my grandchildren, I have a total of five now. And watching them reach the milestones of each development, I love the 1 to 5 year old age where
Oh,
they
isn't that great?
attain, yeah, attain the next level, and you can see their mind just working and how their brain develops. I love that
Yeah.
part. But I love teenagers too, talking with them, helping them
Hmm.
to realize what they're thinking and how that's going to provide the consequences of their thinking. So I actually
Right.
love all ages. So
Yeah, yeah, it's great. Particularly, I mean, I've got grandkids right now. They're at that between 1 and 5 years old, and that I just love, absolutely love. Particularly when something happens and you just give them back to the parents and let them take care of it. That's the great thing about being a grandparent. Am I right?
one of the things I enjoy taking them out to the parks and the zoos and the playgrounds
Yeah.
and
Oh, yep. Yep. So, talk to us a bit about what inspired you to write this series of books.
well, because of my experience of not feeling loved, and now I realize the anxiety is an anti-love feeling. Anxiety is about you're a nothing, you're a failure, you're a loser. Well, I didn't know that for so many years, that when I finally did figure out after my second divorce that something was going awry in my life, that it was love. I did some soul searching, and hey, I found out I didn't like myself deep down or even love myself. So that's what prompted me to write the Heart Fairy books, that you're loved no matter what. So no matter what's going on in your life, the shame, the doubt, the hateful things you have stored up inside of you of your unaccomplishments. So that's what prompted me to write the first 3 books. Then, and I wrote these about 10 years ago, but only published them maybe 5 years ago. Then my Heart, Fairy, and Anxiety, my latest book, which isn't out yet, it's coming. Anyway, it's coming. And a few years ago, my father, who has dementia, I'm taking care of him right now, he started having panic attacks, and I'd never seen that before. Well, that got me to thinking, gosh, because there's other people in my family that have anxiety. My daughter was diagnosed with it in 7th grade, refused to give her speech in front of class. Oh. Now, this is a kid who in 2nd grade told her teacher, I want to sing a solo in the spring concert. And she did. I never knew she could sing. So here in 7th grade, she refuses and knows she's going to get an F. So I take her in and talk to her about getting just a medication just for that. No way. So a diagnosis of a social phobia, speaking in front of people. And then I had a sibling who in kindergarten never spoke. And that's a sign of anxiety. So mutism. She never spoke. So it's like, I have an idea that there's anxiety in my family, but I never identified it. So it wasn't until my dad had those panic attacks that I said, maybe I should take a look at this. And yep, I've got social anxiety. I can picture times when it was like, nope, I'm not doing that. I'm not as good as them. So that's what prompted me to write this book. And it's aimed at the little ones because of watching my grandson struggle with his anxiety. And my daughter not willing to deal with it, but partly because she doesn't want to deal with her own anxiety. That's part of it. But he's had trouble in school acting out, and he's doing better now. Maturity helps, as with anybody. But
yeah. So your first book was called The Heart Fairy, right? Just The Heart
Correct.
Fairy. And these are a series of interactive books, am I correct, where the parent actually reads to the child, and then there's cues during the book. Am I correct in that?
Not necessarily cues, but the idea, it encourages the parent to come up with a story or come up why that page has those pictures, such as in the first book, no matter how big or small you are, no matter what color you are, no matter, okay, so here's the big or small one. So it shows a diverse group of people, which I think is real important, having worked with handicapped, diverse, disabled people all my career as a nurse, that exposing kids to the other sides of life is so important along. And that was part of the reason for the pictures in my book. So to expose people to the idea that, hey, you're okay. And there's lots of other people with lots of other not okay situations. Right. So that's the pictures in the first Heart Fairy book. The next one is Heart Fairy and Your Family. This one I have 14 different depictions, so different parental units and different sibling units. Now, is it okay for me to tell a quick story?
Sure. All
right.
We love it.
When this book first came out, I went to my grandson, who was 6 at the time, and I said, my new book is out. Can I read it to you? Well, he's playing a video game. He said, sure, but never looked up. So I start reading it. I get to the page where it's the parental units of 2 mothers. He stops, opens his eyes big, and looks at me and says, there are? I said, yes. And you could just see him processing that. And he went back to his video game. So when a few pages later, I got to the parental units of 2 dads, never phased him. He'd figured it out. Yeah, must be 2 moms, there must be 2 dads. So that's what I like about the family book. Helps the 4 to 7-year-old age group realize or learn that there's other family styles out there, and it's okay to be from those kind of families. The third book, this one, I really encourage just as an educational book to keep all the time, Heart Fairy and Your Feelings. I've got 18 different feelings in here, and learning your feelings is so important when you're growing up. Being able to label what's going on, especially for anxious people, anxious kids. When you talk to them about their tummy ache, when they don't want to go to school or something else, you help them label that as worrying and then you develop. Then I talk about the strategies of helping your kid after that. But the first thing to do is to recognize. You, even as a parent, need to recognize what the symptoms are so that you can then help the kid identify it and work forward from there.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. So, yeah, it's stepping them through these processes is so important. Um, so, and then we get to the one that's about to be released in March, right?
Well,
Um,
hopefully March is kind of almost all gone.
yeah, I was about to say, but
Yeah,
let's
my
say
publish
April.
yeah, my publisher is done. She's ready to submit it to the printer for the first proof, but we're
Hmm.
still waiting for the Library of Congress number, and it's been a good 6 months.
Uh,
So we're waiting.
yeah. Well, I understand that process. We've had many authors on the show, so well, it's hopeful. So let's talk about heart fairy and anxiety. Obviously, it addresses anxiety and gets the root of the problem. So, talk us about some of the examples that are in the book.
Well, mostly I've used what's happened to my grandson. So he would, on 2 pages in the book, I talk about behaviors that younger children will exhibit. The physical symptoms are one: tummy ache, headache. I mean, you could even get a kid who throws up if he's that anxious.
Hmm.
Um, my grandson would speak out when he wasn't supposed to. And so during the holiday concerts, oh boy, he wasn't supposed to talk when the kids over there were singing, but he did. Um, I'm trying to remember some of the other things, but so I have a list of the various behaviors to look for as a parent. And if your kid is exhibiting any of these behaviors, that's a clue for you to start watching for the patterns. Do these things happen prior to an event that you can track? Behavior, the event, and how many hours before. I've had some mother say that it was about 24 hours ahead of time for her daughter.
Hmm.
And her daughter was maybe 8 years old, 7, 8 years old, that they finally got a handle on it. So I'm not sure how far back it was before they finally got a handle on it, but the tummy aches was the big thing, and nausea 24 hours before it was even just school. So you can imagine, you were talking about the Indiana schools. Is that where you were talking about?
Hmm.
So these, but all over the US and all over the world, kids returning to school, the amount of anxiety that's happening. And is it them? Is it their parents? Is it society as a whole? Are we safe? That's a basic question that parents are going to have to answer for their children.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing that the pediatrician that we were talking about that we just had on our show stated that now is a good time to kind of turn off the news. It's not helping. And I had to agree with her. You know, since she said that, my morning is spent without news. I don't listen to the news in the morning. And I tell you, I leave the house a little bit more refreshed and a little bit more positive. So, I mean, but that's their job. Now, I'm going to get myself in trouble with my friends that are anchors and news reporters, but that's their job to report the news. But
It is, but it's been suggested. I've seen it through this whole year. Turn off the news if you get upset at this stuff.
yeah.
And you don't need to get upset at this stuff. It's facts. Now, just the other day, there was somebody mentioned that there were more deaths from the N1H1 flu epidemic that went around a few years ago. I have yet to see that in print.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting to see that in print.
Yeah.
But then to have it and tell people, look, it was an epidemic, not a pandemic, but an epidemic, and it killed more people. And we're fine. We're going to get out of this. But we don't have media saying that yet.
Yeah.
It'd be
No.
nice if they would.
Yeah, but they have to report what's happening now, and but yeah, it's so that is true.
Yes.
I mean, especially in these trying times, just brings anxiety. Both political reporting and the reporting about the pandemic. I mean, oh my gosh, it's yeah, and again, the pediatrician we had on brought in cases where children are making themselves sick so they don't have to go to school. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that just crushed me right then and there. So,
Yes.
so again, on the anxiety book, you bring up some situations that so the kids could kind of identify some of the
So
symptoms.
the parents and the children can identify the behaviors. The children may not understand what the behaviors are. They don't know that they're doing that. They don't know that they're misbehaving, and the parents are embarrassed. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's not that. And the teachers who are overwhelmed by what's going on.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a matter of allowing the knowledge to come in that there is something to do. And I think that's part of the problem. You think there's nothing to do. You're so embarrassed. What do you do? And you don't know what to do. Maybe you go to the pediatrician and I'm not sure what the pediatrician would do. My daughter ended up going to a therapist
Mm-hmm.
and they talked about ADHD and things to do for ADHD, which is not anxiety. So there you go. It's what the
Yeah.
parents report. So what can the pediatrician do if the parents are reporting their viewpoint, and if they're unwilling to deal with anxiety, you're not going to help your child. So that's one of the reasons for the book, that I list these behaviors. And if your child has any of these, think about it. Could it be anxiety? I don't say it's anxiety in the book.
So this is kind of like a co-help. It both helps the parent and the child. It
Yes.
identifies those situations for the child, and as the parent is reading it to them, they're learning as well.
Yes, that's what my books are: interactive, child and parent. And
Awesome.
I, maybe for some of these school systems where maybe it would even help teachers. I never thought about that, but for teachers to identify what's some of the behaviors that the kids are having. And instead of an IEP and sending the kid to timeout, which is what my grandson did a lot of in his younger years, to really identify that this could be anxiety, could be, and to discuss it and maybe try some of the remedies. There are actually, I think this is really cool. There's a tapping. I recommend tapping. Have you heard of that?
No, no.
Tapping is a technique that works on the meridians in the system, the energy systems. And there's different ways to do it. But at tapping.com, they have a unique way of tapping around the eyes, above and below the mouth, and then on your collarbone.
Mm-hmm.
And this disrupts the anxiety energy itself.
Oh,
And there's an organization, either tapping.com or the tappingsolution.com. They're actually teaching that in schools. So teachers are using it at the beginning of the day and when they come in for recess. Just
mm.
let's calm everybody down. I'd really like to promote that, but it's not my website.
No, I
But I
understand. I
I do
understand, but
mention I do mention it in my book, here. And at the end of the book, I have a list of resources that I would recommend to anybody.
awesome.
So
That sounds great. Yeah, because that's one of the things as we're going through these trying times that it's talked about. And when I did turn on the news, it was I it, well, periodically they do have human interest stories which are inspiring, and that's kind of like what we hope to do with the show. But yeah, but these books sounds great. So let's talk a bit about how they get your books. Are they just through you? Are you? How do they go about getting them?
well, heartfairy.net is my website, and you can order them there. Because this one isn't out yet, there's a comment tab at the top. You could ask to be notified when it comes out, and I'll get back
Ah,
to you.
all right.
Otherwise, the other three books are available on that website. They're available at my publisher's website, henschelhousepublishing.com. The first three were on Amazon. And since this one isn't out yet, I haven't talked to my publisher about it yet, but excuse me. So I advertise heartfairy.net.
All right.
It's easier than Henschel House Publishing.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So, but Amazon, they're no longer on Amazon, or are they? Or
I do not know. I haven't checked. With COVID, I kind of just got out of it last year. I didn't
Uh,
promote anything. I was scheduled to go to some book fairs, and I tried a couple craft fairs, and they all got canceled. So I just
yeah.
quit, and I decided to write my book on anxiety. So I
There
never
you
checked
go.
with,
Perfect timing,
yeah.
if you ask me. Perfect timing. Oh boy, this has been great. I'm kind of excited I saw some videos about you were actually reading your books, which I think is great. That you have some videos that parents can go up and actually see what the books are all about. And remind me, was that at the website as well? That,
Artfairy.net, yes, on
okay,
the
all right,
homepage.
great, great. And then you'll know how to order through there. You'll find out. Oh, a little backstory that, as I was reading through your website, that I do want to give credit to your illustrator because there's
Ah,
kind of a little unique backstory with her.
oh, she's a wonderful illustrator, currently in business as an artist. So I'm a little spiritual. I'm on the spiritual side. And when I first wrote the books, I said, universe, who is my artist? And a few days later, I could see the letters Winchester, because that was her non-married name. Kate Cook
Ah,
is now her married name. So I'm looking up a Winchester artist, and there was a very famous one in the 1800s. So it wasn't until about page 5 or page 6 that I found Kate Winchell. She was a high
uh,
school student. That year, when I found her, it was her senior year, but she'd already illustrated a book that was published, and she did a wonderful job on that. So I emailed her, asked her if she'd be interested, and then I went to visit, and she already had these little heart fairies drawn up. And I said, how
uh,
unique, how wonderful. That is such a clever idea. And I ran with it. Then I said, sure, go ahead. So
uh,
between the two of us, I would send her the words and my ideas of what I wanted on the page. And so
mhm.
we just snail mail back and forth the pictures, her originals, and then any updates that need to be done. And so then she went off to college, finished, I think, 2 more of my books. I have a total of 5. I've only published the first 3. Went to Baylor, graduated with her artist degree, and is now a commercial artist. Private
Amazing.
practice, just
Yeah.
great.
And that story is up on your website as well.
Well,
So,
it's, yes.
yeah, so a little bit about her at least. Can you, just to give her some additional credit, can you hold up a book and show some of the illustrations?
Sure.
They're amazing.
I like Heart Fairy and Feeling. So I'll just start. No matter if you're feeling angry, no matter if you're feeling proud, no matter if you're feeling left out. Yes, I love her illustrations. No matter if you are feeling afraid and there's the monster under the bed.
That's great.
No matter if you're feeling annoyed, the little one coming along to play with your toys. No matter if you're feeling confused. And I like this one. No matter if you're feeling naughty. So, like I've said before, each page has its own story, but if a parent can have their own story to tell in addition, oh, kids love that. They learn
Yeah,
more
that's
when
great.
it's your own story.
Well, it sounds like you two are a great team. So, boy, it's amazing. So, we're about at the end of the show here. Need to wrap things up. Again, tell us about the website. The website's name is, and we'll make sure it's up on the screen as well. Heart Fairy.
Artfairy.net.
Excellent,
And
excellent.
it's got all 3 books, and on the homepage, it mentions this book is coming out.
All right, great, great. Boy, I tell you, we are so appreciative of you taking the time to speak with us today. It's exciting. When I first saw these books, I said, "Up, this falls right in line with what we're trying to do." So it's great timing. Listen, we will let you go for now, and again, want to thank you and look forward to getting some of the books for my grandkids.
That'd be great. That'd be wonderful.
Yes. So again, her name is Terri Sorg, and she is wrote a series of books called Heart Fairy. And again, well, we thank you, and we'll say goodbye for now.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. is brought to you by Dutch Farms, Graham Financial and Wealth Management, Lerner and Rowe Injury Attorneys, Sip Coffee, Tiger Plumbing, and Executive Suite Squared in beautiful Hammond, Indiana, home of Up Next with Bill and Mel.